My girlfriend admitted to me recently that after I left for medical school in Australia, she did a Google search of how to survive long-distance relationships. That was kind of funny because I told her I did the exact same thing. Neither of us feel very comfortable with the idea of doing long distance for such a long period of time, but here we are 2 years later. And it got me thinking about some of the habits that we picked up along the way in order to continue building at a distance. And I thought to myself, that was a pretty unique situation. You think someone online might find this useful? Absolutely. Probably. Okay, at least one other couple out there might find this useful. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive into the things that we did to have long distance work for us, starting with this one. So the first thing we did was we made a plan to reunite. There has to be a converging trajectory, otherwise you'll inevitably fall apart, as author Mark Mason put it. In my experience, you have to do this step earlier than you might expect, because there are a lot of working parts to the plan that you likely won't sort out over one discussion. And the plan, here's the key part, the plan needs to be specific and actionable. I remember the first time I did long distance in a previous relationship. I was going to Boston for graduate school, and I told the person, hey, I'm gonna be there, it's gonna be a couple years or so, and I don't know, I'll come back home and we'll figure it out. Later on, after 2 years, I realized that I felt like I wasn't really done with Boston yet, and because I didn't have a specific plan, it all ultimately didn't work out. Now this time around, when I was going to Australia for med school, I was much more serious about making a plan, and I was much more committed. I told my now current partner, hey, I'm going there for 2 years. I will be back in November of the second year, and this is roughly how my year looks like, and we'll have check-in points every so often to make sure that we're still on track. It was something like that. She said to me, cool, I'm also in a position right now where in about 2 years' time, I'll be making a pivot in my career as well. So I'll meet you there. The big obstacle for us was our careers, and it seemed that it worked out because both of us felt like we were roughly in the middle of our careers. Most of our other personal values aligned as well, including both of us wanting a dog at some point. So that gave us these past 2 years to work towards a specific goal to reunite. So in short, make a plan together, make it early, make it specific. So the second thing that worked for us, we talked often and about everything, with a side caveat of also be okay with sometimes not talking at all. We made a plan originally to talk once every few days because I thought that I was going to be really busy with school, and that plan lasted all of about a solid week. And then moving forward from that point, we made time to talk to each other once a day, and that worked out a lot better for us. It made me realize that it truly was a myth that when you're in medical school, you have time for nothing else. You really do have time, but you gotta be smart about it. The way that I did it was that, it sounds silly, but I literally blocked out time to talk to her, and I made that a part of my schedule. And that way I devoted the time towards building my relationship at a distance without compromising any time that I was using to study. And I think actually by having that accessibility to chat every day made communication actually optional for us. And this was huge. There were some days where she had a long day at work and she just really didn't feel like talking, and so she would just let me know, hey, I'm just gonna go to bed. And I was fine with that. Or there were some days where I had something that had come up, and the time where we usually would talk, I said, hey, I really can't talk today, or I kind of just want to spend this time and catch up on the next Witcher episode. That is what really made the communication work for us, I think. There were no ill feelings harbored towards one another. Neither of us were thinking, oh wow, the one time in their day that they have free time and they choose not to spend it with talking to me, right? Like, there were none of those feelings, and that's important. All right, you ready for the third one? Be slow to judge. I think we can all agree that with limited exposure to someone, i.e. in a long distance relationship, it's really easy for us to begin to make assumptions that are often exaggerated or completely wrong about them. And I think that in those times, it's really important that we check in with ourselves first, and we begin to critically evaluate the feelings that surface at the very beginning. So here are a few that have been outlined in this article, How to Survive Long Distance Relationships by Mark Mason. And the first one I think we're all familiar with, and that is jealousy. Jealousy that often comes up when we see our SOs on social media in social outings, and we start looking at the people they hang out with and we're like, oh, who's this person? Who's this? Stop it. The second feeling is the feeling of feeling neurotic or overcritical about something. So let's say your SO started picking up the phone later on some day, or missed a few of your calls or something like that at a time that you normally talk to them. And instead of thinking, oh, they might have something to do, you begin thinking, oh, they're not picking up the phone now, they would rather do something else, therefore they don't care about this relationship anymore. Maybe they're just pooping. You know, give them the benefit of the doubt. The third feeling to look out for is an interesting one, and that is feeling like your partner is perfect, is this perfect specimen. Also known as idealizing your partner in your own mind. We haven't seen them in a while, and I think it's really easy to forget all the little obnoxious things that they do, right? And we just see this as this perfect person that we can't wait to reunite with. So the whole point of all these examples is to tell you to be skeptical about your feelings before you act on them. Basically, it's a long-winded way of saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Now, the last bit I want to talk about is technology and about embracing it for the relationship. I was reading an article online that said that video chatting has changed the landscape of long-distance communication, and I absolutely agree. Things that we're able to do now, we couldn't do like 10, 20 years ago. And I think it's important to recognize the advantage that it has brought us. I think a big one is FaceTime. I am so tired of FaceTime, but honestly, I'm glad that I have FaceTime rather than not. Ways in which my partner and I used it is that we would have set up movie nights or dinner dates together, or one thing that we liked doing was learning how to make new cocktails together while doing it and being able to see each other. So that was really nice. Another way that I like to use technology is to send little treats to my partner every now and again through Uber Eats. It's like, hey, I miss you, here's a sliced cheesecake. Okay, so to wrap this up, the big question, is it worth it? Is a long distance relationship today worth it? It's gonna sound like a cop-out answer, but I can't answer that for you. But I will say that if the two of you are willing to give it a real shot, then I think you stand to gain a whole lot learning about yourself, learning what you're capable of, as well as learning what your limits are. You'll also learn a lot about intimacy and the different forms that it can take as well. Okay, so the second big question in the context of being a medical student in a long distance relationship, can it be done? Yes, it can be done, but it's going to take an insane amount of patience and understanding from both people, but particularly your SO, because there are going to be many days ahead where the relationship is going to feel one-sided. And so it's going to be your job, medical student, to make sure that you let them know all the time how much you appreciate them for giving up their time to you. Okay, that's all I got for this one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.